Daliak yawned, as his quarters' lights dimly lit to simulate the rising sun of his home planet, Gakiki. Metal arms reached down and gently pulled away the covers, allowing him to slip out onto the floor. He cursed that the slipper machine suffered a minor error in the night, and he had to shift his feet to the side to don the footwear. Exiting the bed, which expertly folded the sheets back in proper fashion through its automated process, Daliak strolled to the bedroom door to the main living area of his quarters. The sensors recognized his approach and silently slid the panel into the wall, allowing him access beyond. The living area was filled with the pleasant scent of kaf as the machine percolated the drink. Daliak elected to step into his bathing room and stood in the grooming cabinet. He silently luxuriated while the machine sprayed him with water, applied cleaning solution to his scales, massaged his tight muscles, and finished with a buff shine. Returning to the living space, the kaf machine presented a cup of hot liquid, the temperature and sweetness already perfectly set to Daliak's preferences. He sat in his favorite chair where the arm folded open and moved a digital panel for easy reading. His preferred story layout was present on the screen. Sports scores, news from his political faction, and algorithmically cleansed social media posts greeted him for the day. After posting complaints about a rival political faction, Daliak set the cup aside, where a hovering robot collected it to perform its cleaning and storage duties. Stepping into his clothing booth, the machine dressed him for the day, and arranged his head crest in the latest style. Peering at himself in the mirror, he noticed the style had changed again. He was happy he paid extra for the style subscription, so he could always remain at the cusp of fashion. The door to his portal squeaked slightly as it pulled into the wall. Daliak frowned and tapped a few commands on his personal wrist computer. An automated maintenance bot would be by to address the annoyance. Between the off-center house slippers and now a squeaking door, Daliak's day was starting out horribly. His day only got worse when he scanned his identification, and the third track on the moving walkway in the ship illuminated. He frowned. Someone else must be using the other tracks. The third track always added 23 seconds to his commute to his duty station. He was already an ungodly 3 minutes away, making the third track a torturous affair. The extra time he needed to arrive at his duty station was so absurd that, when he arrived, the officer he was to relieve had already departed. Daliak didn't blame his counterpart. If his relief hadn't arrived within 8 seconds of his scheduled shift end, he would have also left. There was 8 seconds already lost for the mud baths and sauna. To further add to his annoyance, the room temperature was a half a degree too cold. He grumbled as he adjusted the thermostat to the preferred temperature. At least the previous officer was a similar build, so Daliak didn't have to wait for the chair to adjust to his body preference. As he sat, the chair warmed and began to work his muscles. A panel opened in the wall and another cup of perfectly crafted kaf was set before him. He sighed as he stared at the dark digital panel before him. The Lazek Empire was going through a minor economic recession. Because of that, they had to severely cut back on personnel. This meant that Daliak had to suffer through a 2-hour shift, 3 days a week, as opposed to the customary 1-hour shift twice a week. They didn't even get compensatory holidays to make up for losing 4 hours of VR a week. Tapping the screen, it illuminated. Daliak couldn't complain too much. He had a cushy job as an observer. Below them was a bright blue planet with swirling clouds and green land masses. The recession in the Lazek Empire was a result of a lack of conquest. They had exhausted the planets in their home galaxy, and Daliak was part of a 10-ship military expedition to their galactic neighbor. The trip across the deep void was actually quite pleasant. Since he was an observer, the 6-month trip meant he had nothing to observe. It proved to be a nice, albeit short, interlude from his back-breaking hour-long weekly training sessions back on Gakiki. There were just some things that couldn't be automated, and observing new alien races was one of them. The fleet was fortunate when they arrived at the new galaxy. In the extreme outer reaches, They arrived at a star system with a habitable planet. Even better, the planet didn't appear to have advanced life. Peering at the monitor, it was Dalek who watched as the locals, which called themselves human, busied about their daily lives. He zoomed a satellite camera the humans were blissfully unaware circled their planet like a swarm into one of the residents below. On the screen, the image of a human male reached down and physically pulled closed a wooden door on his dwelling. He then inserted a flat metal rod into a slot, turned it, then walked away. Dalek snickered at the primitive lifeforms below as he followed the male on his journey. He walked a full kilometer by their measurements to stand on a covered concrete platform. The platform was abutted next to a pair of parallel metal rails inlaid on the ground. The humans would run wheeled vehicles over these tracks and move masses of their population across the planet's surface. Humans in more remote areas were equally primitive. They operated personal ground conveyances that were still operated by manually turning a wheel and pressing mechanical plates affixed to the floor. The humans appeared to be in an early technological stage of advancement. A number of roles, Dalek recognized as particularly dangerous ones, were performed by machines, yet most of their tasks in the day were still performed as was done by the ancients. Doors were simple slabs of wood on pivoting hinges. They poured hot water from boilers over ground leaves to make their drinks. They walked everywhere. Also, while they had computers, the presence of any computational device was limited. He was only able to detect a few rudimentary binary silicon chips in their ground conveyance, and a barely more advanced one in personal communication devices. Otherwise, computers were strangely absent. Doors, vacuum cleaners, lawn equipment, none of it was computerized. There were also a lack of wireless signals beyond those generated by their pocket communicators. There was also no evidence of a military. There were pockets of humans on the planet that initially appeared to be training with ancient chemical-propelled slug weapons, yet after further review, it was determined they did so for recreation, not combat. The people were so backward that there wasn't even evidence of space travel or satellites. Which is why the Lazek Empire had decreed that the invasion would start. Dalek would bear witness to the first of many conquests for the Empire in the new galaxy. Dalek opened a new panel and observed the fleet. Landing ships were disgorging from the vessels, while orbital bombardment weapons were primed. The fleet would eradicate a few major cities to be safe, then fly in and subjugate the populace. The risk assessment was so low that a few officers would accompany the legions of robotic soldiers down to claim the world for the Empire. His visions of glory were interrupted when his screen flickered. It was strange. The AI would have caught and filtered out any signal error before ever reaching his screen. Then it happened a second time, and the image of the planet below vanished. On it was the face of a human. Male. The human's pale skin and tuft of stringy fur on his head disgusted Dalek. He wondered how the orbital camera caught such a strange angle. "Greetings," the human on the screen said. Dalek stared in wonder. He tried to move the image and pivot the screen to see who the human was addressing, but the inputs had ceased functioning. "No, Dalek, your system isn't broken," the human said, somehow without reading Dalek's mind. Dalek's eyes widened in surprise. "What? How?" The human made a noise called a chuckle. "You look confused." Dalek reached over to a button and requested AI assistance. It ran its protocols and returned systems operating normal, yet this was obviously wrong. A primitive below had hijacked his station. How did it evade the AI's analysis? "That won't do you any good. Artificial intelligence systems are remarkably easy to trick," the male said again. Dalek just then realized the human was also speaking Lazek. "I don't understand," Dalek stammered. "You're a primitive people. How are you doing this?" The face on the screen chuckled again. Oh, we have our ways. Honestly, we were watching you as much as you thought you were watching us. Daliak once again felt shock. He wanted to repeat the word how again, but realized it only made him look dim. Instead, he said, "You lie." The human shrugged. "If you say so. You've been in orbit for 52 rotations. There are 10 ships in your fleet, and you're currently deploying roughly 5 million mechanical combat droids and 20 Lazek officers." "That's not possible! You people still walk everywhere! You even close and lock your doors by hand!" Daliak shrieked, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing on the screen. The human stared back at Daliak for a moment before speaking. "I can see your confusion. You let computers do everything for you, after all. We can't blame you. That would make us hypocrites." Before Daliak could speak, the human continued. "Centuries ago, we had our own technological revolution. The advent of the transistor revolutionized our society. Communication, processing, entertainment, it exploded into new avenues. As time went on, we were applying computers and wireless technology to everything. First, it was the obvious stuff. Home computers, phones, entertainment systems. Then it started to drift into areas like televisions and automobiles. Finally, we started putting computer chips in everything. Microwaves, stoves, refrigerators, stuffed toys, shoes, timepieces, you name it. Then something happened. We began to question what we were doing. Was it really better that we could push a button, activate an electric motor, disengage a latch and open a car door? How did that improve things compared to a simple steel cable and a lever? Were we really better off because we could deliver food to our house for double the price of getting it ourselves? Was it really a good idea to have a device in the room that listened to us speak? Was subletting office space for a computer really high technology? Then we came to a realization. We had thought ourselves advanced and sophisticated. We believed we were better than our ancestors. We rejected their old superstitions, and we believed we were the masters of the future. Yet, it turned out we didn't abandon religion at all. We replaced it and were worshipping at the altar of technology. Realization didn't come easily. Strange devices would be created and dubbed world-changing when they, in fact, did nothing. Adherents would always excuse a failure to change our lives as simply a lack of development. Time would always lead to improvement. They fell into the same non-falsifiable arguments they regularly accused the spiritual of doing. As time went on, new developments began to fail more and more. The gap between the last true breakthrough continued to grow, and more things were given computer chips. This panel projecting three-dimensional images would revolutionize the world. These glasses would let you see things differently. This machine would squeeze juice better than ever before. You can buy a picture of a monkey and become wealthy later. The claims became more and more absurd. Yet it still didn't sway the adherents. Then we started having real problems. Fuel distribution systems were disrupted because we thought it wise to attach a wireless transmitter to the control system. Transportation disruptions occurred because of a glitch. Major company operations were impeded because someone updated security software, which only existed because they insisted on exposing critical operations to outside communications, was performed incorrectly. Still, there were apologists insisting it was merely a lack of time and resources that caused the issues. Only when we had our first death did we truly start to question it. When, in a house dubbed as Smart, a fire knocked out the electrical system, and the residents burned to death because the automatic door wouldn't open. The human paused, and his eyes shifted to focus behind Daliak ominously. Daliak's pulse rose when he realized what the human had said. Not even waiting for the chair to comfortably lift him to his feet, Daliak jumped up and spun, his muscles not used to the exertion. He approached the door and pressed the panel. Nothing. The door refused to open. His eyes widened further as he pressed the communication button to call security. Still nothing. A loud laugh echoed from behind. Turning, he saw the human staring back, teeth bared in what they called a smile. It felt threatening to Daliek. The human spoke. "Don't bother. You left everything open to hijacking. No one will even know you're locked in this room until your relief comes in over an hour from now. Had you not thought of putting a computer chip between you and opening the door, you would have easily been on your way to warn your people about the incursion." Daliek slid down against the door, exhausted from the exertion. "Why are you doing this?" "As a warning. In a few minutes, when your invasion starts, we will eradicate it. The dropships and the other 9 ships will cease to exist. You will observe and report as is your job," the human said, all mirth gone from his features. "Why? There are tens of thousands of my people on those ships. If you spoke with us, we could have avoided conflict," Daliek said in a panic. Another laugh, this one sounding scornful. "Is that it? No, we are testing your character. You know all you need by the behavior of those who believe themselves in a position of power. Now that you realize you're in a position of weakness, your remorse holds no weight." A new realization came over Daliek. Now he smiled. "Wait, no, you're bluffing. You're facing a 5 million strong automaton invasion. You will be crushed. You have no military." The human shook his head. "There's that famous techno-arrogance. You don't comprehend what our realization led to. We didn't abandon technology. We changed how we approached it. If it didn't enrich our lives, made things faster, easier or safer, we didn't waste our time on it. It changed how we thought of ourselves. It made us peaceful and welcoming. We now focus on development where it makes sense, where it satisfies those requirements. You think of yourself as advanced. You came across the void between galaxies, yet while you orbited our world, you missed hundreds of our ships coming and going, traveling in parts of reality you can't even comprehend. We live here as a filter, to protect those deeper in our galaxy from violent outsiders." The image on the screen shifted. Daliek watched as the invasion ships suddenly began to turn around and cluster together. The other ships turned their weapons away from the planet and faced each other. When the mechanical fleet was at the center, the main ships opened fire and evaporated the entire invasion force in an instant. Had you arrived in peace, we would have welcomed you with open arms. Instead, you saw what you thought was a delicate butterfly and decided you needed to smash it. Return to your people with this warning." The image winked out as the 9 ships opened fire, destroying each other in waves of horrible energy. Humanity sent their message. They aren't an easy conquest. They aren't primitive. It was the Lazek that were.